We talk often about overnight success and how it doesn't exist. But what you don't hear people talk about often is overnight failure. Overnight failure can happen. Yes, it's happened to people before, but more often than not, it's everyday failure where something's not happening and you're chipping away at the block. You're chipping away at the block. You're chipping away at the block.
Kevin, all of the hard work that he's been putting in, long hours, back to back to backs, he said he was averaging 8 calls per day over the last week. We're not seeing any of the fruits of any of that labor yet. And so that trend that he's created is too weak to notice until it's too strong to stop. And it's going to be amazing, and I'm so excited for it. But the same goes for negative trends as well.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode, number 1070. One word nobody likes, but everyone needs, and that word is structure. Today, for episode number 1071, what you need to know about both success and failure. So first of all, happy Monday. Hopefully you had a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Happy Monday. I was getting ready for bed the other night, Alan. I was actually in bed. And I was laying in bed, and for some reason I couldn't fall asleep. I don't know if I consumed caffeine too close to bedtime or whatever it may have been, but I was having these thoughts. And I had this, I don't know if I would call it a breakthrough, but I kind of had a breakthrough. And I said, interesting. Taryn and I haven't been doing check-ins for a while. Like, it's been a minute. It's been a hot minute. And I choose to accept responsibility to make sure we're consistent about that. And that was really the first initial thing was, wow, I'm very, very consistent, but for some reason I haven't been consistent in that. Okay, that's a mirror. What does that mean? Like, you gotta get your stuff together, Kev. But then I had this realization, Alan, based on a quote that you have said, and I'll have you say after. Most relationships don't have a point where some relationships don't have a point where there's an argument, a blowout, and the relationship ends. Usually what happens from my experience and the experiences I've seen from others, and Alan, probably you as well, is you stop doing what you did in the beginning, and then you stop doing something else a little by little. And then you wake up one day and you've drifted way away from the shore and you can't see the shore anymore. And that was the moment I had of like, this is how it happens. This is exactly how it happens. You forget what you did to get to the dance, and the next thing you know, you're 15 years down the road. And again, I'm not nervous about this happening to us, but it was a very interesting understanding. And when I titled this episode, What You Need to Know About Both Success and Failure, we talk often about overnight success and how it doesn't exist. But what you don't hear people talk about often is overnight failure. Overnight failure can happen. Yes, it's happened to people before, but more often than not, it's everyday failure where something's not happening and you're chipping away at the block. You're chipping away at the block. You're chipping away at the block. And I figured, especially after that experience, I figured it would be a worthy, valuable episode to throw out there, because if we can raise your awareness to where you might be having micro failures that aren't failing forward, that can hopefully save you some pain in the long run.
So the quote that Kevin was referring to there is, trends are too weak to notice until they are too strong to stop. And whether that's talking about success or failure. I was talking to a client earlier about this. You don't always notice that it's happening until it's not too late, but until the current is really, really strong. And so it can feel like if you don't catch the analogy that I've used on this podcast before, I'll just share this quickly. I did this with a client recently as well, and they were like, holy crap, great analogy. I said, okay, here's what happens. Something in life happens where you get very humbled. And humility is very powerful. You get humbled and you're down to earth and you're grounded and you're vulnerable and humble, and you're actually usually in some pain, and you say, you know what? Okay, I got to do something different. Okay, I got to change my life. I got to try something new. I got to hire a coach. I got to listen to a book. I got to whatever. So you go out and you find this, you have the humility to like go learn something new or to start a new program or buy a course or whatever. For me, I'll use Insane Productivity, Darren Hardy's course as an example. So I was down and out, I wasn't feeling productive, and I was like, I just need something. I need a Mario Kart booster in my life. So I invested the money. It was pretty expensive. Best course I've ever bought, by the way. And I took the course.
Other than our course.
Other than ours, obviously. No.
How dare you?
Yeah, come on, man.
You son of a bee.
I paid slightly more for this course than we charge for our courses. You're funny, man. Darren Hardy's course is really good. So, but I do think ours is as well. Okay. So anyways, I'm paving a new runway here. So I'm humble. I buy this new course and I'm like, okay, Insane Productivity. I'm going to change my life. So I take the course, there's 12 modules, and you're supposed to do it in 12 weeks. So I start taking the course, I start learning these concepts, and I start to really dial in my habits. I start to track. I start to implement some of these changes with phone hygiene and calendar hygiene and all these things. I start to get the momentum going. When you start gaining momentum, you start really hitting some new adversities and some new opportunities, and that gives you lift. So it's like a plane on a runway. When you start getting momentum, eventually the wings start to take off. So you start to take off. And Kev, forgive me for the plane analogy here because you're probably freaking out over there. So you start hitting new challenges, and then you overcome them because you've got momentum, and you innovate and you try new things. And then on top of that, you get new opportunities. The higher and higher the plane elevates, the more and more the higher level, the next level that you become as you elevate, you get new opportunities. You attract persons, places, things, and ideas that you never could have attracted before because you were playing at a lower level in this analogy. So you keep elevating. What happens is you get what I have always referred to as shiny object syndrome. So eventually you start losing momentum without knowing it because you're focused more on all these new opportunities, not as much on the main habits that built the runway originally. And by the time you realize you've gotten distracted from the fundamentals, you are already in the nosedive. The plane has already lost its lift. And by the time you're in the nosedive, you ever seen one of those movies, Kev? You've seen like Air Force One where he's trying to like lift the plane up? Okay, so Kevin doesn't watch a lot of movies. So in the movies, whenever there's a plane that's about to crash, the pilot's like trying to lift the lever so that the plane can get lifted.
I avoid those movies. I watched the Sully movie, the one where he lands the plane in the Hudson, and in the middle, I told Taryn, I was like, I've definitely made a mistake here. I should not have done this. This is too real for me. I shouldn't have done this. This is a mistake.
Yeah.
I regret this.
All right. So imagine by the time you notice the nosedive, you're trying to pull up on that lever, but you're already kind of screwed in a way. Now, in this analogy, the one thing that I would say that is different is that you never fully go back to the same ground level that you started at because you still have the tools, you still have the lessons, you still have physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual development. But it does create a new, quote-unquote, rock bottom. And that new rock bottom is humility, vulnerability, and okay, what's the next tool? Okay, maybe you hire a different coach. Maybe you reflect and realize that you've got shiny object syndrome. Maybe you decide next time I'm not gonna, invest that much money on shiny stuff. I'm gonna reinvest back in the business or focus more on my relationship or whatever it is. So whether it's your fitness or it's your relationship or it's your business or it's your dreams, usually the trend is too weak to notice until it's too strong to stop. And this is the problem because, Kev, for example, you did 90 episodes of podcasts, including ours. So we have Next Level University, plus we have Podcast Growth University, plus an additional 60 shows in those 28 days that we calculated. Mm. The compound effect of all the people that Kevin is out there impacting, shout out to Laura as well, she's the one setting these up, has not paid off yet. You've seen like no return and you're putting in massive effort, but none of that has returned anything yet. It's not like you can go outside, plant seeds, and then like scream at them so they grow into plants. No, you need to wait until, I don't know, botany or anything, but what is it, spring? The spring. So what you plant in the fall, you reap in the spring, I think.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I didn't know you planted in the fall. I have no idea. I've never planted anything in my life.
I think you're supposed to plant in the fall, and then in the spring when the sunshine and the
You
rain.
need Emilia. Emilia would know. She plants.
She would know.
She's a big plant
She
connoisseur.
is. For sure.
All right, well, that's what I'm going to go with.
Well, what is it? April showers bring May flowers. That's the thing, right? So Kevin, all of the hard work that he's been putting in, long hours, back to back to backs. He said he was averaging 8 calls per day over the last week. We're not seeing any of the fruits of any of that labor yet. And so that trend that he's created is too weak to notice until it's too strong to stop. And it's going to be amazing, and I'm so excited for it. But the same goes for negative trends as well. Yep. That first cigarette eventually turns into like, a half pack a day. The half pack a day eventually turns into a pack a day. A pack a day eventually turns into 1.5 packs a day. Alcohol, same deal. A couple beers here and there eventually turns into hard alcohol. Hard alcohol eventually turns into drinking daily, like that kind of thing. So all of us have fell victim to trends that are too weak to notice until they're too strong to stop on both the success and the failure side. And I think it's really important, and I asked a client this earlier, this is what I'll ask our listeners. I said, what is the trend in your life that might be too weak to notice right now and might eventually be too strong to stop? And that's a really good question to contemplate.
Yeah. It goes to I don't remember what episode it was, but we did Friday's episode, 2 powerful questions that will change the way you think. That is another powerful question. It's interesting. I was actually telling Taryn this. She was getting in the shower, and we were talking before she got in there. And she's like, hey, do you have a minute? And I was like, honestly, no. Like, I am so overwhelmed right now. I have so many emails to send. And she's like, are you okay? I said, no, it's all good. It's all great stuff. Because of the podcast, like because of the amount of shows I've been going on, I'm actually starting to see some of the fruits of the labor, really, because I had somebody yesterday say, hey, can I pick your brain on podcasting after I went on the show? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, of course. And now she's a client today, which is great. Awesome. Right. But it doesn't always go that way. It doesn't usually go that way. So to Alan's point,
how did it feel the first month of going on all these shows though? Because you had like very little success in terms of clients.
Up until 2 weeks ago, I was like, this sucks.
Okay. Dude, I'm telling you, that's why people struggle.
I love it. I love going on shows, so at least that part's aligned. And I'm not just doing it to get clients, but it helps listens, it helps clients, it helps impact. Yeah. Right. Yeah, no, for the first, up until this week, really, I was like, there's so much time.
Is this going to work?
Yeah,
there's so much uncertainty of, is this going to work?
Yeah. But I had that, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead. What's your take on that? Because I think that if you don't have mathematical certainty that it's going to work, and this is something I'll vulnerably share here. I told Emilia this recently because I was on the phone with a client, and we were teaching a lot of finance lately. So reach out if you want help in finance. But, and technically I'm not certified to coach on finance, so I'll give you some advice, and I'll have to say it's your choice type of thing. I'm not going to tell you what stocks to pick, all right? That kind of thing. But anyways, I can be a coach, so we're good. But I was talking to Emilia recently about, I think I'm coming to realize that a lot of my self-discipline comes down to mathematical certainty. I'm not hoping things work out. I feel like it's a deep understanding of the formula and the compound effect. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, sometimes I am trying new things and hoping they work out. But for the most part, if Kevin and I have high levels of self-discipline, a lot of it is because he trusts me and because I'm calculating these things in advance, right? If you invest $100 a week, at a good growth rate for the rest of your life, mathematically you're going to do very well compared to if you don't. And it's not hard to invest the $100 when you know it's going to work. So that's probably another episode, but I wanted to share that with our listeners too, because a lot of the times people quit before they would ever see the fruits of their labor.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that meme where the digger is coming up on the diamond and they quit right before and there's like a big diamond right next to? Can you talk about your new perspective on all this?
I just wanted to take a quick second and give a shout out and a huge thank you to Next Level Podcasting Solutions, Kevin and his team. They have been incredible to work with, very flexible, on the spot with any questions that I have or any concerns that I have. When I first started out my podcast, I was doing everything on my own. I have no editing background. I have no podcasting background. I knew nothing about it. And so I was bootstrapping all of this myself while I was still trying to take on my role as a full-time mom. And once I met up with Kevin and we had these discussions and I got on board with adding an editing team, oh my goodness, it just lifted this weight off of me. It lifted my time that I was spending doing my editing. And in the beginning, full transparency, when I was editing just my individual recordings, it was a little more manageable, not super manageable. And then when I started doing my interviews for the podcast, it was hours upon hours of me doing the editing that didn't include any of the promotional material that I am now getting from Kevin and his team. It wouldn't have been sustainable. I would not have been able to keep up with that. So I recommend Kevin and his team. They have done wonderful work in helping me grow my podcast. I have really enjoyed working with the editing team, and it definitely feels like more of a team environment versus me hiring them to do a specific job. I mean, we all work collaboratively on the projects that I have, and I have these crazy ideas sometimes, and they come up with a solution to fit my needs. I can't recommend them enough. I really enjoyed working with them. Kevin and the Next Level Podcasting Solutions, thank you so much for the work that you have done in the past and are continuing to do for me. I'm growing this community and growing this platform with a beautiful team that is working for me and with me to see my vision and help that come to life. So thank you again so much. I really appreciate you guys.
I literally thought of that analogy today, genuinely, because it feels like over the last 5 days, everything has just gotten crazy. But the day before, I was very much, I won't say I was sad. I was a little disheartened. I think that's probably the best way to put it. Because it was like, it doesn't seem like anything's happened. Like even our listens were down a little bit, right? And then it's just like gone up again for some reason.
Oh, it's really good.
But I was thinking to myself, I wonder if any of this is working. Like, is this actually to the point where I was thinking this probably isn't as valuable as I thought it was? And then a couple days later, I'm like hammering emails and I'm overwhelmed, and in a good way, in the best way. This is another thing, Alan. I don't know if you've ever had this moment. This might be a moment I've experienced on my own. I don't know at what age this happened. Probably, I don't know, maybe 26, 27. When I lived in Worcester with Matt, I remember one day I thought to myself, I was like, I haven't had a home-cooked meal in like 4 years. Like, I'm eating freezer food every day. Like, I'm having muffins and Pop-Tarts for breakfast every single day. Every time I go to the studio, I'm getting a coffee, donuts, and a breakfast sandwich. I literally had this thought of like, when did I stop eating real food? I really had that. I swear to God, I had that conversation with myself. And it was a conscious effort to say, okay, I have to start eating real food again. Genuinely. Has that ever happened to you? Is that weird?
I would say...
I feel like an infant.
You feel like an infant? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
No, well, here's the thing. Longevity-wise, I'll never forget this. This will be a funny story for our listeners, behind the scenes. Kevin and I, we've told the story kind of, but not really. We were on the Pacific Coast Highway and we stopped at that food truck. That food truck was awesome, man. We got a couple monsters. We're heading to an interview. Dr. Nikki Starr overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Awesome, awesome home. And just a really cool trip all around. And Kevin and I got these huge tacos or burritos or whatever. And you turned to me, I'll never forget it. And you're like sitting there, I swear to God, monster in one hand, plate in the other with a full like burrito, taco, whatever. And you turned to me and you said, dude, I'm so lucky I love to work out, because otherwise I definitely would have had a heart attack by now. It was one of the funniest things. Yeah. And I don't do it any justice because he says it with much better timing. But it was really funny. Kev, I have thought often about the long-term implications of my choices in all arenas, man. Like, honestly. And you know what's been bothering me a lot lately? I've been doing ROM-WOD and mobility pretty consistently, right? So I'm probably 7 of the last 10 days. Like, congratulations. But I think about that all the time. It's like, I want to be like a well-rounded athlete at like 55. I'm talking like I want to break the paradigm of what people think aging is. And me looking 15 still is probably
Helpful.
on pretty good track. Yeah, it's going to be helpful. But I think about it all the time. Kev, this quote of like what if I extrapolate what I'm doing now, what I'm eating now, what I'm thinking now, what I'm doing, with Emilia and love languages now, podcast now, I'm always thinking like, is this the train track? Is this train track going to go off the rails like later on in life, right? So I'm always questioning things like that. And yeah, I've had moments like that too. I don't think quite as drastic.
It
but
was very humbling. It's like, wait, I had chips for dinner again. It's like, interesting. When did this mayhem start that I call a life? Like, when did this habit start?
What have you done since?
I try to have a salad every day. It's way different now.
Yeah.
It's way different because I'm aware of it. But then it's like, the coffee thing kind of crept up on me.
Yeah.
I went from not drinking almost any coffee at home to Taryn got me this amazing espresso machine, and I'm hammering 4 a day. And then I'm like, then I looked at how much caffeine was in it, and it's
how
like
many migs?
200 migs per espresso. So I was like 700-800 milligrams of caffeine a day. You're supposed to have 4. Maybe that's why I can't sleep.
I'm at 460 right now. Yeah.
Well,
which is high.
I'm convinced that nothing matters to you. I really am. I don't know how to explain it, man. I'm starting to think nothing matters. I don't know how to explain it. You can drink a Bang energy drink and go right to sleep. Like, you're not a normal human being. I'm not convinced that you weren't created somewhere. I'm really starting to think that.
You funny, man.
He's like, I'm going to run a marathon this weekend. It's like, all right, cool, man. You do you. I'm not. And I can't. Yeah, no, I know.
It was brutal.
But I woke up one day and I said, look, you have to eat something that at one point existed in this world. And you have to start, you got to do better than you're doing, because I don't think this is going to play out well for you into your future. And
yeah.
But it didn't start that way. It started as
small. Yep.
Yeah, it started as, I remember Matt and I used to get these, they're called Devour. Have you ever had the Devour meals? It's just a frozen dinner kind of for athletes is the way it's framed, high protein. Okay. And we would have 2 of those every night. Every night that's what we'd have. And I was like, this is good. This is healthy. It's for athletes. And it's like, no, that's not real beef. That's not real. This is real.
So the trends are too weak to notice until they're too strong to stop. Kev, if the timer is freaking you out on the live, it's
no,
because
I know we
Jeff,
so we're good.
I have 3 rules for life that I've been sharing with all my clients. I really want to give them to our listeners, and it's very similar to this concept, because this concept might as well be the compound effect works both positive and negative. Be very careful. I was on the phone with a client earlier. His name's Rob. Shout out to Rob. I said, listen, man, I've got 3 rules for life. Technically 4. Here we go. Number 1 rule for life is stop the wrong trains. You have to stop the wrong trains. Persons, places, things, and ideas. I'll give you an example, and I used this example with him. I needed to stop drinking. Stopping drinking was the best decision I have ever made. It has changed my entire life. So that's number 1. Stop drinking. I'm joking. Stop the wrong trains. And remember, this is contextual based on your goals, based on your dreams, based on who you are, right? So stop the wrong trains. Kev, stop eating donuts every day, right?
Man, I couldn't even tell you the last time I enjoyed the sweet, sweet goodness of a donut.
It's been a while for me as well. I think we have a little bit of trauma from that group coaching video.
Yeah. Speaking of group coaching, go check out the website if you want to see Alan and Kev deep into a bulk.
Next level donut solutions is what we call it over at NLU. Rule number 2 is start the right trains. So I was talking to a client earlier, and I said, if Kevin and I hadn't started the Conscious Conversations Change Lives podcast and the Hyperconscious podcast, I never would have even met you. Like, can you imagine? Imagine if we never started this podcast. Like, how different everything would be. Right? Crazy.
I can't even imagine. Who knows?
It's wild.
So
start the right trains. Stop the wrong trains. Rule number 1. Rule number 2, start the right trains. And then number 3, never, ever, ever lose momentum. And then rule number 4 is see rules 1, 2, and 3. And that's my thesis for this episode. My takeaway for everybody is what are the wrong trains that you really should stop that are no longer serving you? And the analogy here is if a train is at a stop and it has no momentum, you can put something in front of it and it can't, let's say you put, cinder blocks in front of the wheels. It's not going to go. But if it's already got momentum and it's going 80 miles an hour or 100 miles an hour, whatever it is, it's going to blow right through a brick wall. So you got to be really careful about, that's how habits are. That's how Kevin's example with check-ins are. Mm-hmm. I've had humbling moments where it's like, why don't we check in anymore? Right. It's like, have we gotten a little bit arrogant here? Like, should we went at the beginning of our relationship, we were doing 3.5 hour check-ins. Yeah. And I don't think that we still need that, but I do think that a check-in once a week is really important. So now we just do 3 questions, but trends are too weak to notice until they're too strong to stop. Financially, health-wise, eating habits, you name it. It's just a truth.
Yeah, I'm glad that I had that thought process because I think it connects really well to this episode. And I think it's a great example. I think this happens a lot in relationships, friendships, family. You when you stop doing what got you to the dance, you don't get to dance anymore. That is it. That is, and it's on both ends, whether it's positive or negative. And there's not a lot of, I won't say content, but you don't hear oftentimes people talking about overnight failure or lengthened consistent failure. So I think this was a valuable episode. We had some good gigs, which is always good. Got to talk about planes in California and donuts and burritos and food. That was cool. I enjoyed that a lot as well. Yeah.
It was a good one.
It was a good one. This is, Alan and I are recording this on a Friday. It's been a long week, if you can't tell. We're very giggly and very jolly, but I think it's been a great week of episodes.
For sure, man. Yeah, for sure. We ended strong. What do you say we plug?
I'm really teasing because I'm just trying to play with you. But just the way you looked at me, you were alarmed there. You got alarmed very quickly. You're like, oh my goodness, he's gonna lose his mind. Next Level Nation, I'm here. I got the energies. I'm ready to roll. I'm sorry. If you
what episode is this for you today?
Boy. Today I actually had a break. So this is the thing. I haven't eaten all day, and I did 10 rounds of boxing, 10 5-minute rounds. So I boxed. I probably burned like 1,500 calories. So I'm like, not only negative calories, but I'm negative calories. So there's not a lot going on in my squash right now. So I don't know, probably 7. It's probably my 7th call of the day on a Friday. Next Level Nation, if you are a dream chaser, you want to be surrounded by other dream chasers, please join our private Facebook group, Next Level Nation. I shared something very vulnerable in there the other day, and the feedback I got, not only in the group, but I had so many people message me on WhatsApp and Instagram. I genuinely mean this when I say it. We do have the best community in the world, and Next Level Nation is a great place to meet other people in that community.
If you feel like you are not headed in the right direction, I will help you create the train tracks to get you to your destination, aka your dreams. That is definitely something that I have been working on and practicing, my entire adult life. And I'm doing it with a lot of people right now. I'm very, very grateful. So my link to my calendar, half-hour free session, if you have not done one yet as a listener of this show, book on my calendar, and I can't wait to meet you.
Next Level Nation tomorrow for episode number 1072, last week's live podcast. Can you have humility without confidence? This is a very hyper-conscious episode, and we changed the format of the live podcast to make it a little bit shorter and bite-sized like all of the rest of our episodes. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Please reach out.